Morning, dear friends. Thanks for joining me today. I got rather excited the other day when I saw one of the trainees that I work with this pink can, and I thought to myself, lots of potential there. I know that I've asked them in the previous occasions to save me some of their cans, and I've done some other work with soda cans, but I thought today this is just such a joyful color that let me show you how you can prepare a can to be able to use it for die cut work. So I've got some lovely dies here. I've got these little birds, I have a little princess, I've got a dragonfly and a flower, I've got a large and a small little dolphin, I've got an assortment of little cats which are rather nice, and some frames, a little butterfly and a rose. Not sure which ones I'm going to use just yet, but let's just start by preparing this, and then we will see what we can fit onto the actual piece of metal that we've got. So the first thing that I did was to make sure that I had cleaned this completely, so that I got rid of all the soda that was inside, cleaned the outside so that I didn't have any germs. The next thing that you're going to notice is that the can itself has this little indentation here at the top and a little one at the bottom, and one's going to have to try and remove that so that you can actually have a flat piece of metal or aluminium to go through your die cutting machine. So I'm going to take just a cheap little craft knife. I'm going to lock it in place by opening that little slash, and I'm going to make a small incision in that little crease where the sorry, I'm not explaining myself properly. Make a little incision just here on the ridge before it starts to bend in, and as soon as I've got a little gap that I can get a pair of scissors in, I'm just going to use my scissors, and I'm going to start cutting on one side, and then I'm going to start cutting on the other side just to open it up a little bit more. Please do be very careful. These little bits of metal here are extremely sharp, and if you are anxious about that, then please wear safety gloves. I've done this a few times, so I'm fairly confident I'll be able to do it without harming myself, but always err on the side of caution. So we're just going to snip all the way around to remove this. And there's rather a nice little face. I think you could make, if you flattened out the little pink, you could make quite a nice little piggy face for something or other. Anyway, we'll set that aside for now. I'm going to do exactly the same here. I'm going to cut at the edge of this pink printed area, just cutting in. And interesting enough, the base of the can seemed to be slightly thicker than the rest of the can, which is normally easily squashed by your hands. I'm just going to remove my knife out of the way now. I've done what I need to do with it. And I'll just be quiet while I'm cutting this because it makes a noise. Okay, so that process itself is fairly simple. Now I've left with this sort of edge that's a bit raggedy, and I need to flatten it out. So I'm going to start by working just maybe where it's torn here already. I was going to maybe cut this side, but it doesn't matter. I'll cut through the center here. This will enable me to flatten this out and cut from two sides if it makes it easier. You don't want to cut yourself. Great. So you can see now I've got this nicely opened out. I'm just going to trim off any little bits that I've got like that so that I don't catch my skin. Oops, and I've picked up a bit of, obviously there's still a little bit of water inside the can. I've been draining this for a couple of days. Never mind, we'll soon get rid of that. So let's just mop this up quickly. It's always a bit difficult because of the shape of the can just to get everything out. It's not going to affect cutting with the dies at all. It's just going to be easier if it's dry. Okay, so let me just set that aside. Where you've got any little raggedy edges like these little spiky things that are possibly going to hurt you, it's now easier that you've opened this just to trim them all off so that you can be sure that you are working in a safer way. Right, so the next thing would be for me to decide how I'm actually going to stick these things onto my dies. I definitely want to have a few of the things that I could use quite often, and here you're just going to have to play around with where you want to lay them out. Let me start with the cats. I think the cats would be quite nice with some of this black and white writing that the black writing that we've got here. And I don't mind a few cats that are pink. If I slide this down ever so slightly, we'll put that there, then I'll get a few pink cats and a few that have some writing on them. Then that's absolutely fine. So, oopsie, I'm just going to use some washi tape just to secure this. And if you don't have a die cutting machine, then what you could also do would be just to simply find a design that you like, trace it onto your aluminium sheet with some paper, some carbon or a pencil, and then you can actually just cut it out by hand. This is very soft metal, so it is easy to cut out. So I'm just using my washi tape to secure that, and I'm just going to see what else I can fit on here. Potentially a bird. What about a nice row of largely pink birds? That could be fun. Right, let's get some more washi tape. So let's have some pink birds. And you can use these die cuts in your scrapbooking projects. You could use them to make cards. You can use them in junk journals. You could use them to embellish a box. That would be rather fun, to embellish a box with these. And all you're wanting to do is have a glue that glues metal to whatever surface you choose to use. So let's just secure that down. Then, because the frames will largely cut out the middle, let's see here, that pink on the edge. I think I'll skip that one for now. Let's see if we can get a little pink mermaid in here. And don't worry about this washi tape being underneath this die, because it's so thin, the die will cut through that when I run it through the Spellbinders machine that I've got. Alright, so we just stick this one down. Got my birds. I think some little pink dolphins would just be marvelous. So at work, for those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, I work on a farm, and there's a training center on the farm as well, and I teach special needs adults various things to do with horticulture. But the rest of the farm is a working farm. We've got a cafe on there, and there's all sorts of fun activities. But right now we're sort of heading into autumn, and the farmers have been busy baling up hay. And the other morning I was walking to work and walking along one of the farm roads to where I had to meet. And oh my goodness, it was just so lovely with the light on the bales of straw that I took some lovely pictures. I'll see if I can pop one in here, but it was just a joy just to watch the seasons and how nature changes everything. We've pulled out lots of our wild flower beds, and it's been sad to lose all the sweet peas and things like that, but we are busy planting a whole lot of new autumn crops, and that's also exciting. All right, so I've got all of this stuck down here with my washi tape. You'll see that on one piece of aluminium that I've got from this can, I'm going to be able to get numerous things out of it. And oh, I've got a little butterfly here. Let's see if I can squeeze the butterfly on. Yeah, and so once you cut this out, you'll have quite a lot of ephemera that you could use for your various projects. I may or may not fit that in. Yep, can squeeze that one in. And it's not a difficult process. As you can see, it hasn't taken terribly long to do. And I'll put some links for you to have a look at other videos I've done with different projects. I did some ones with Christmas die cuts, and that was really nice. I made some cards with that. I'm not going to make anything with this today. I just want to show you the process. So I'm just going to get my machine out and pop this under my mat while I do so. And I'll be back in a minute. So I've got my cutting machine out now. I've got a Spellbinders Grand Caliber, which is a lovely machine, and it's got a very handy little template here of what you need to do when you sandwich your things. So to cut, I need my A plate, which is my base plate, and my C plate, which is my cutting plate. And I'm going to take my sheet of aluminium with all my die cuts and put that onto my base plate face downwards, because I want the cutting edge of the dies to be onto this mat because it's a harder one, and it will take the die cuts. Maybe I'll just start this way, sorry, a bit noisy, and let's reposition the butterfly, which has done a flip. There we go. So just always check that. Alright, so I'm going to put that flat down, and then I'm going to slide these into my die cutting machine, and I'm just going to start to roll them through. It's going to make a little bit of a noise, and sometimes when you're doing this for the first time you feel as though, oh, it's a little bit tight. Trust your instincts as to whether you continue rolling or not. And I normally find the best thing to do when I'm rolling through metal like this, just to make sure I get a nice clean cut, is I roll it through one way, then back through the other way, and then I do it once more just to make sure that I've got nice clean edges. So we've got to the end of this now, and I'm just going to go forwards and backwards once more. Probably an overstep here in precaution, but doesn't matter. I'd rather be safe than pull it all out and find that I haven't done it properly. Right, so I'm just going to pull that out, slide this back in, unlock it here so that I can move it, and let's have a look at our dies. Right, you will immediately be able to see whether you've cut through crisply or not, because you'll see whether the metal is separating. And if you're on any doubt, then always at this stage run it through again. I can see here the little dragonfly hasn't done well. The birds, maybe I could do a little bit more. So I think I'm going to run this through again. Just position my dragonfly on here again. So just a bit of careful jiggling here just to get the dragonfly on in the right place. But because there's an impression already in the metal, it should be okay. And I'll just do this a couple more times and then I'll come back to you. Well, I've run the little dies through my machine a couple of times more just to make sure that I'd cut most of them. There were one or two that didn't really work well. This little one that I've got of the dragonfly and the flower hasn't really cut through there. I could run that through a few more times. Then I've got a few that I've still left on here, and I just want to show you what to do to remove them. So you'll be able to see immediately when you move the metal around the outside edges of your designs whether they are going to come free or not. And then you could start to lift the die off the design or off the background. So let's just put the butterfly there for the moment. And you'll see for the butterflies that they haven't really cut through all that well. I could go around with a pair of scissors, but I think just now I might run through that again. I've got this little birds on a branch, so I'm going to remove the actual die, and that one looks as though it's worked nicely, so you can have a look here. And it's just a question of gently maneuvering it all through, so you can push a little bit from the front and a little bit from the back just to ease this out. You've got quite intricate detail here, so be very careful when you're doing this that you're not actually breaking your design. And if you have small areas like there where perhaps it's not gone through as cleanly as you'd like, oopsie, I need a pair of pointed scissors, then you can just take a small pair of scissors and just nip through into that edge. So I'm not finding the right way yet. Oh, this is what I want. Nice pair of old embroidery scissors that I use for cutting stencils. So I'm just going to carefully snip through that little tab that's not quite cut through cleanly. There we go. And just remember that it is a harder substrate than most of your card making materials, which is why you will find that you have to sometimes do it 2-3 times through your machine and then do this little bit of maneuvering here, but it doesn't take all that long. Right, so I'm just going to pull that away here. Every now and again, give it a little nip in the corners. It's actually more the corners that just seem to catch a little bit. It's more fiddly than anything else. Oopsie. There we go. push this down and up a bit. Right, it's flexible, so you can bend it as you're getting it out. There's a little tab here that's stuck. There we go. And I can now just cut through that little bit of solid metal that I want to remove. Get my scissors into this little corner just to nick that edge. Don't want to cut off the bird's tail. And when you know that it is the background that you're removing, you can quite easily just cut away what you don't need. Just a bit of patience, that's all. Right, little corner here that's holding. When you have a more open design, you know, like the dolphins and things, which are just big bold shapes, they seem to cut cleanly quite quickly. It's these little bit of intricate designs that maybe need a bit of fiddling. Sort of hook this and get my scissors underneath, yep, into the corner here. There we go. Loosen that one. Push them back. I suppose it's quite nice that you can maneuver the metal so easily, huh? There we go. And it's coming free, one little bit here. And just a bit in this corner as well. There we go, nearly there. Right, and what have we got here? So I've got a little bit here around this tail that I can just cut away because it's a piece of background. Let's see if I can get this off without breaking the branch. Oh, there we go, we're loose. Great. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my scissors, trim that little bit off here, and then I'm just gently going to go into those two areas, which I'll do shortly in a minute. Let's just have a look at the cats. Do love cats. I had such a lovely cat back home. She was a mixture, well, she was largely white, and then she had black and ginger splodges on her, and I got her as a gift from my son. And she was tiny, tiny, tiny. She used to curl up in the palm of my hand and go to sleep. She was that small. We had a little sort of cake that you could get in South Africa called a tinky, which is probably double the size of one of those chocolate mini rolls that you get in the UK. And my little cat was about that length, so she was called Tinky, and she was just lovely. She really was lovely. She was a gentle cat. She was the runt of the litter, but oh, what a joy to have her in my life. And she lived for 21 years, and it was sad. Just before I left to come to the UK, she got quite sick, and I had to have her put down. Very, very difficult thing to do with an animal. Heart sore always when I've had to do that with my own animals and others in the family. But yeah, so oh, look at these little pink cats. Aren't they just delightful? I do love them. They're so full of character. Now these would be just lovely little things to put in journals or on a card even, maybe a bookmark. And I find quite often the easiest way to stick these down onto card is just with some double-sided tape, or if you were going to use glues, if you're very careful, a tacky glue of some sort would work nicely. But there are loads of glues available, and it's going to depend on where you live. Oh, look at these. I'm so thrilled with these little cats. Wow. Okay, so let me just clean this up, and then I'll show you everything together. I've decided just to go in with my scissors and loosen this butterfly to see if I can make something of it just by cutting around the edges. I might find it works, it might not, and you'll find that this will happen with some of your dies. Some will cut beautifully through your aluminium and others not. And now I'm just going to fast forward this as I work so that you're not too bored because you've seen what to do.